The time capsule of secrets. It started with the buzz of construction tools. Stonebridge High School, a relic from the 1960s, was undergoing long overdue renovations. Workers dug into the cracked foundation of the gymnasium when one of them struck a metal box. It was no larger than a shoebox, sealed tight and corroded by time. The principal, Miss Clara Jennings, called for an impromptu assembly to unveil the discovery. Excitement rippled through the student body and faculty. By midday, the box rested on a makeshift podium in the auditorium, surrounded by the curious faces of hundreds. Miss Jennings carefully pried open the lid, revealing its contents: faded black and white photographs, a handful of handwritten notes, and an old reel of film. The items looked ordinary at first glance, but a closer inspection revealed something far stranger. The photographs depicted various individuals: a woman in a floral dress, a boy clutching a baseball glove, an elderly man with a walking stick. Each photograph had a name and date written on the back, but none of the dates made sense. They were all from the 1980s and 1990s, decades after the capsule was supposedly buried in 1974. More puzzlingly, no one recognized the names. Students searched the school archives, yearbooks, and local history records. Nothing matched. These people had no ties to Stonebridge High, or even the town. The handwritten notes were even more baffling. Each note was addressed to no one in particular, written in jagged, hurried script. They contained cryptic warnings. Avoid the bridge on December 17th. Lives depend on it. The storm isn't just weather. Prepare for the fire. When the shadows stretch at noon, the choice must be made. The final note was the most chilling. One of you will understand. Do what must be done. With no equipment to view the film reel on site, a local historian offered to assist. By evening, a small group, including Ms. Jennings and a few students, gathered in the school's library to watch the footage. The grainy film flickered to life, showing scenes of the school as it was decades ago. But the footage shifted abruptly, displaying images that couldn't have been recorded in 1974. Cars from the 2000s, a collapsed bridge, an inferno engulfing the town square. The reel ended with a single frame held in eerie stillness. The school auditorium empty, with the time capsule sitting on the podium, exactly as it had been earlier that day. Word spread quickly, drawing reporters, conspiracy theorists, and even paranormal investigators to the school. But as the media frenzy grew, so did the sense of unease. December 17th loomed closer. On that day, a massive truck swerved on the icy Stonebridge Bridge, narrowly avoiding disaster when authorities, prompted by the warning, had closed the bridge hours earlier. The storm came weeks later, not a hurricane but a massive explosion at a chemical plant just outside town. The forewarned preparations saved dozens of lives. Yet the mystery of the capsule remained. Who buried it? How did it contain evidence of future events? And most hauntingly, who was one of you meant to understand? Months later, a senior named Ellie Hart stumbled upon an old diary in her grandmother's attic. It belonged to her great-aunt Sylvia, a former student at Stonebridge High. Sylvia's final entry, dated 1974, was chilling. They don't believe me, but I saw it in the dream again. The fire, the bridge, the people screaming. I don't know how or why, but I have to warn them. The capsule will hold the truth when no one will listen to me. Ellie realized her great-aunt had somehow seen the future, her visions inexplicably preserved for decades. The time capsule was sealed in a glass case in the school library, a reminder of the warnings that saved Stonebridge, and the secrets it still held. After the diary was found, Ellie became obsessed with her great-aunt Sylvia's mysterious visions. Late nights turned into weeks of research, poring over every detail of the time capsule's contents. But no matter how hard she tried, one question remained unanswered. How had Sylvia seen events decades into the future? One afternoon, Ellie revisited the glass case holding the time capsule. She stared at it, her reflection mingling with its metallic surface. That's when she noticed something odd, a faint engraving on the underside of the lid, something that no one had thought to examine before. The words were nearly invisible, weathered with time. For those who listen, the echoes will guide you. The phrase stuck in Ellie's mind. She shared the discovery with her closest friends, Marcus and Sophie, who had helped her investigate the capsule from the beginning. Echoes? Like sound waves? Marcus speculated, tapping his pencil on the library table. Or memories, Sophie said. Maybe it's metaphorical. Sylvia's dreams could be echoes of something bigger. Ellie wasn't convinced it was metaphorical. She began to dig deeper into her family history, hoping to find any clue about Sylvia's life before the visions began. She found nothing unusual, until she stumbled upon an old photograph of Sylvia standing near an abandoned structure deep in the woods behind Stonebridge. The building was an old observatory, one that had been decommissioned in the 1960s. No one had been there for decades. Ellie, Marcus, and Sophie ventured into the forest the next weekend, the photo serving as their guide. The observatory was hidden under layers of vines and moss, its dome rusted and its walls crumbling. Inside they found a dusty control panel covered in strange knobs and switches. A desk nearby held journals filled with indecipherable equations and notes, along with references to something called the Resonance Project. "What is this place?" Marcus whispered, flipping through the journals. "I think this is where Sylvia saw her visions," Ellie said, her voice trembling. One of the notes mentioned a machine that could tune into the echoes of time. It claimed the device could amplify residual energy from significant events, past, present, or even future. And it was still here. The trio found the machine in the observatory's basement. It was a strange contraption with a circular frame, embedded with cracked crystals and wires. Despite its age, some parts looked functional. Against Marcus's protests, Ellie insisted on turning it on. "We need to know how she saw those things. What if there's more we haven't been warned about?" she argued. Sophie hesitated, then helped Ellie figure out the controls. The machine roared to life, its crystals glowing faintly. The air around them grew heavy, and a low hum filled the room, growing louder and louder until it was unbearable. Suddenly the world shifted. Ellie found herself standing in the middle of a burning town square. People screamed and ran as flames consumed the buildings around her. In the distance she saw the bridge collapsing into the icy river, cars plunging into the water below. But then the scene changed. She was back at Stonebridge High, standing in the auditorium, staring at a new time capsule. This one was larger, its surface inscribed with symbols she didn't understand. A voice echoed in her mind. The warnings were only the beginning. "Prepare for the second wave." Ellie gasped as the machine powered down, yanking her back into the observatory. Marcus and Sophie were staring at her, their faces pale. "What did you see?" Sophie asked, her voice shaking. Ellie took a deep breath. "Something worse. Something we're not ready for." The next day, Ellie returned to the school, determined to uncover more. She realized the second capsule in her vision wasn't a figment of her imagination. It had been hidden somewhere, buried, waiting for the right moment. She combed through the school's blueprints, searching for anything unusual. That's when she found it, an unmarked chamber beneath the auditorium, sealed off during renovations in the early 2000s. With the help of Marcus and Sophie, Ellie convinced the school to let them excavate the area. Sure enough, they found another capsule. It was larger than the first, with symbols etched into its surface that matched the one she had seen in her vision. When they opened it, they found even more cryptic warnings, this time about events far beyond Stonebridge. References to global calamities, rising seas, and something called the final eclipse. Ellie realized that the time capsules weren't just warnings, they were instructions. Sylvia hadn't just seen the future, she had been tasked with preparing for it. The final note in the second capsule read, "The path diverges here. To warn the world is to face the burden of truth. To stay silent is to risk the end of all things. Choose wisely." Ellie looked at her friends, fear and determination in her eyes. "We can't ignore this. The echoes are counting on us." The trio knew their lives would never be the same. Armed with the knowledge of what was to come, they began their mission to uncover the truth behind the capsules, the Resonance Project, and the echoes of time that had chosen them as their messengers. Ellie, Marcus, and Sophie were no longer just high school seniors. They were guardians of knowledge that could save, or doom, the world. But as they delved deeper into the contents of the second capsule, they realized how dangerous their mission truly was. Among the warnings was a detailed map pointing to 3 other potential time capsule sites scattered across the country. Each site was tied to a specific catastrophic event, one that could still be prevented if they acted in time. "We can't do this alone," Sophie said as they pored over the map. "This is bigger than us. We need help." "But who would believe us?" Marcus countered. "And if the wrong people find out, this technology could end up in the worst possible hands." Ellie agreed with both of them. They needed allies, but they had to be cautious. Their first step was to gather more information about the Resonance Project and its creators. Their research led them to an enigmatic physicist, Dr. Adrian Voss, whose name appeared repeatedly in Sylvia's notes and the journals from the observatory. Voss had vanished in the 1970s, shortly after the observatory was decommissioned. Official records claimed he died in a lab accident, but Ellie wasn't convinced. Using clues from the journals, the trio tracked down Voss's last known associate, an eccentric inventor named Margaret Maggie Thorne. Maggie lived in isolation. On the outskirts of a remote desert town, surrounded by makeshift machines and solar panels. When they arrived, Maggie was wary but intrigued by their story. "So, you found Adrian's little time capsules, huh?" she said, her voice laced with both curiosity and sadness. "You knew about them?" Ellie asked, stunned. "Not all of them," Maggie admitted. "But I helped him build the machine. Adrian believed time wasn't linear, it was a web of possibilities. He thought we could tune into the threads and pluck the ones that mattered most. He called it the resonance theory." "Why did he stop?" Marcus asked. Maggie hesitated, her eyes darting to a photograph of Voss on her cluttered desk. "He saw something he wasn't supposed to. Something that broke him. He told me the future wasn't just a series of warnings. It was a battleground." Maggie revealed that Voss's last experiment had uncovered something terrifying, a presence lurking within the echoes of time. He called it the Watcher, a sentient force that sought to control the web of possibilities. Voss believed the Watcher was manipulating events, nudging humanity toward disaster. This Watcher, could it be why Sylvia saw the future? Ellie asked, her voice trembling. "Maybe," Maggie replied. "Or maybe Sylvia was chosen because she could resist it." The group realized they weren't just fighting against fate, they were fighting an entity that thrived on chaos. Determined to continue their mission, Ellie, Marcus, Sophie, and Maggie set their sights on the first location marked on the map, an abandoned factory in a small town. The capsule there was tied to an impending chemical spill that could poison the region's water supply. When they arrived, they found the capsule buried beneath layers of rubble. Its warnings were clear. The spill would happen within 72 hours unless a specific valve in the factory's system was repaired. But as they worked to uncover the valve, they encountered resistance. A group of men in black suits arrived, claiming to be government agents. They demanded the capsule and threatened to arrest the group if they didn't comply. "They're not here to help," Maggie whispered. "They're here to bury the truth." The group escaped with the capsule's contents and barely managed to repair the valve in time. The disaster was averted, but it was clear their mission had painted a target on their backs. News of their intervention began to spread, though details were sparse. Some hailed them as heroes, while others labeled them as conspirators or frauds. Meanwhile, whispers of the Watcher grew louder in Ellie's mind. One night, as she studied the capsules alone, she heard a voice. It was faint, like a whisper carried on the wind. "You cannot win. The web is mine." Ellie felt a chill run down her spine. For the first time, she doubted whether they could succeed. The map pointed to 2 more capsule sites, each tied to catastrophic events that seemed impossible to prevent. But the group pressed on, knowing they were racing against not just time, but a force that wanted them to fail. As they prepared to leave for the next site, Ellie gathered her friends and Maggie. "We can't keep running," she said. "If the Watcher is real, it's not just about stopping these disasters. We need to understand what it wants, and how to stop it." Maggie nodded. "Then we'll need to rebuild Adrian's machine. It's the only way to confront whatever's in the echoes." Their journey was no longer just about preventing tragedies. It was about unraveling the mysteries of the resonance theory, outsmarting the Watcher, and discovering the truth about the web of time. The battle had only just begun. Ellie, Marcus, Sophie, and Maggie knew they were nearing the endgame. The final 2 capsule sites, one in a coastal city and another deep in the mountains, promised not only new warnings but also answers. The second-to-last capsule was hidden beneath a crumbling lighthouse. It contained a chilling prophecy: when the tides rise and the eclipse falls, the Watcher will step through. Alongside it was a set of coordinates pointing to the final capsule's location. Before heading to the final site, the group returned to the observatory. With Maggie's expertise, they rebuilt Dr. Voss's resonance machine, upgrading its components with modern technology. The machine hummed with newfound power, and as they activated it, they each glimpsed fragments of possible futures. Ellie saw herself standing on a mountaintop, facing a vortex of swirling darkness. Marcus saw the coastal city submerged underwater. Sophie saw the Watcher, a shadowy humanoid figure with piercing, unblinking eyes, standing in the ruins of Stonebridge High. Maggie saw nothing but a blank void. "That's not good," she murmured, shaking her head. The coordinates led them to the Rocky Mountains, where they discovered the final capsule buried in an abandoned mineshaft. This time, the capsule contained no written warnings, just a single, crystalline device that pulsed with light. Maggie examined it and gasped. "It's a conduit," she said. "A bridge between our world and something else." Before they could process her words, the cavern began to shake. The Watcher's voice echoed around them. You cannot rewrite the web. Your threads will be cut. The air grew heavy and the crystalline device began to glow brighter. Ellie instinctively grabbed it, feeling a surge of energy course through her. She saw flashes of the Watcher's influence, how it manipulated events to create chaos and despair. But she also saw something else, a fragile strand of light connecting her, her friends, and the resonance machine. Back at the observatory, Ellie placed the crystalline device into the resonance machine. It amplified the web of time, revealing the Watcher as a towering, shadowy figure standing at the center of a swirling nexus of possibilities. You've meddled enough, the Watcher boomed, its voice shaking the room. This world is mine to shape. Ellie stepped forward, unflinching. You don't control time. You corrupt it. But you've made one mistake. You left echoes behind. And we listened. The machine flared, projecting beams of light that began severing the Watcher's threads of influence. The figure writhed and roared, its form flickering like static. Marcus and Sophie worked frantically to stabilize the machine, while Maggie guided Ellie on how to focus the energy. You have to choose, Ellie, Maggie said. The web can't exist without a weaver. If you destroy the Watcher, someone has to take its place. Ellie's mind raced. If she took the Watcher's place, she could guide time toward a better future, but at the cost of her own life and freedom. If she destroyed the Watcher without replacing it, the web of time could unravel, plunging the world into chaos. The Watcher's voice grew weaker. You cannot bear this burden, it hissed. You will fail. Ellie closed her eyes, focusing on the fragile strand of light she had seen in the cavern. She thought of Sylvia, of the warnings, of all the lives they had saved. I'm not afraid, she whispered. With a final surge of energy, Ellie directed the machine to sever the Watcher's remaining threads. The shadowy figure disintegrated into nothingness, leaving the web of time shimmering and untethered. Ellie felt herself being pulled into the nexus. She turned to her friends, her voice steady but sad. Take care of each other. You'll know what to do. Before they could stop her, Ellie stepped into the light. The resonance machine powered down, leaving only silence. Marcus and Sophie called out for her, but Maggie placed a hand on their shoulders. She's still here, Maggie said softly. She's part of the web now. In the days that followed, strange things began to happen. Disasters that had seemed inevitable quietly resolved themselves. Storms dissipated, conflicts de-escalated, and people across the world felt an unexplainable sense of hope. Ellie's friends returned to Stonebridge High, where they found a new capsule sitting in the library's glass case. Inside was a single note, written in Ellie's handwriting. The web is safe. The echoes will guide you. Thank you. Ellie's sacrifice ensured that the future was no longer a battleground, but a place of infinite possibilities. And though her friends missed her deeply, they carried her legacy forward, knowing she was always watching over them, a guardian of time, woven into the very fabric of existence.